I was 40 and had just gotten divorced after 20 years of marriage. Do the math. I got married a month after I turned 20, so other than a few flings in high school, my ex-wife was the only person I had any sexual experience with. I'm naturally shy, and after my divorce I rented a small apartment in my hometown in southeast Georgia. I spent most of my time either at work or at the pool in my apartment complex. I worked a lot on weekends, so going to bars or parties on Friday or Saturday was out of the question due to the 16-hour workdays from Friday to Sunday. The lack of freedom on weekend evenings, leisure time when most people are working, and my shyness have created a rather lonely world for me in terms of dating or even meeting women. The bars in town were full of college students, so that wasn't an option either. I was not interested in finding a student with relationship problems with her father. I decided to join a local gym. I was on a cheat diet and had just celebrated my 40th birthday, so I was highly motivated to get in shape and had a lot of free time on my weekdays. Those over 40 know that no matter what shape you are, at this age your body cannot do what it did in your 20s. After a few weeks in the gym, I realized this. Although I was getting stronger and looking better, my muscles, joints, and tendons were screaming every day. Looking for a holistic solution, I decided to take a yoga class offered at the gym. The first lesson was very humiliating. There were 20 women in the group of different ages, shapes, and sizes, and only one was me, a man. If there's one thing I excel at, it's my persistence, so I continued to attend the classes. It was winter, and there wasn't much to do since I was paying huge child support, so soon I was practically living in the gym. During the class, the yoga instructor led us through a variety of stretches and poses, and I was sweating like I was in a sauna. It was a completely new workout for me. The class was great, although I was embarrassed because I was sweating like I was in a steam room, and the women around me barely sweated. The visual experience in the class was great, but I was still hesitant to approach any of the women. Most of them were classic Southern belles, very beautiful, very married, pretentious, and most of them, despite their attractiveness, seemed as interesting as watching grass grow. I admit, I really fell in love with yoga. After a few months, I started going to 4 classes a week. The fact that I haven't done this before workout shocked my body, and combined with the weightlifting I continued to do, my physique began to take shape nicely. As I became a regular visitor, I also began to get to know some of my classmates. At first, they avoided me. I think most dear ladies stayed away from me because they thought I was here to meet women. Although this thought crossed my mind at first, the rigor of the classes quickly changed that view. When I became a diligent student and made it clear that I took my classes seriously, I was gradually accepted into the group of regular students. I was almost one of the girls. The regulars of the establishment were gorgeous women in their 30s and early 40s. Most of them were married, their children were in school, and their husbands were working. Classes were held during the week in the morning and afternoon, and this was the only time these ladies could go, since they were at home in the evening preparing dinner. On weekends, they were at the baseball stadium watching their children play football, soccer, or baseball, or cheer on the team depending on the season. These women were in fantastic shape, and as spring turned to summer, I didn't know what I liked more about yoga classes, the workouts I was getting, or the views that came from watching 20 women in increasingly revealing clothes stretch, bend, and contort their bodies for a variety of positions. One particular woman was the source of much of my tension. She was a mother of 3 children, and her body did not show at all that she had children. Flat, toned abs, and a beautiful, curvy, athletic body. She had beautiful breasts, long, muscular legs, and a beautiful smile. Her name was Lynn. I noticed it even in the first lesson. Although many of the moms in the class acted like they were still in high school, with drama occurring between them on a weekly basis, Lynn rose above it and seemed to be the one the other ladies turned to for advice and friendship. I always watched from afar. I'm a people watcher by nature, and there was a lot of fun in the gym. Some girls arrived after spending the morning putting on makeup and choosing the most complimentary and revealing outfits. While I appreciated the spectacle, they were really just teases. During classes, they often went to the water fountain, which was located right where the guys lifted weights. They leaned ceremoniously over the water fountain, took a long sip, and slowly walked back to class, ensuring that the men had a clear view of their bodies. Look but don't touch. Lynn wasn't like that. She wore long shorts and a t-shirt over a sports bra. No makeup, she doesn't need it. I could only see the highlights of her body when, in a certain position, her shirt fell off her stomach, revealing a smooth, toned stomach that I dreamed of biting and touching. For a whole month, she didn't pay any attention to me at all. After it became obvious that I was a regular, we went from simply smiling at each other to learning each other's names and chatting on the days we were there before classes started. When I met her, I learned about her 3 children and her marriage. She married straight out of high school to a husband who worked long hours and studied at a local college to become a nurse. Unlike the Southern belles she hung out with, Lynn was from Chicago and carried herself with a pleasant combination of confidence and humility. Soon the highlight of my day was showing up early to yoga and sitting outside the class with her and talking. It was hard for me to believe, but she seemed to enjoy my company too. I was shy, I knew I looked better, but I didn't pick up on women's signals, and she was married, so I just assumed she was making me feel comfortable when we started doing yoga side by side in every class. I loved making her laugh as the different positions made me squirm in ways I wasn't meant to kinky. This became a challenge for me. She always smelled fresh and clean. She also worked hard in class and, like me, was always sweating within minutes of class starting. I quickly found myself sneaking glances at her. It was difficult to do this without getting caught because the yoga room had all the walls full of mirrors. By the end of the summer, we had become friends, and during yoga class, we looked into the eyes of the mirror throughout the entire class. Every time our eyes met and she smiled, my heart melted a little. Her wardrobe began to change. As we got closer, she started wearing more yoga pants and tops with sports bras. I absorbed it every chance I got. I knew every part of her body, every freckle, every wrinkle on her skin. I spent the summer becoming more and more interested in her. When school started at the end of August, she started spending more time at the gym and seemed to come for cardio when I was lifting weights. We did this about an hour before class, which meant that 4 days a week we spent 2 hours a day together. I still thought we could only be friends. There was some minor flirting, but I never thought I was in her league. Then the day came when she asked me to join her in the sauna. It was Thursday. I worked from Friday to Sunday, so on Thursdays we always said goodbye after yoga and reminded each other that we would meet again on Monday. At the end of the yoga class, she asked if I could join her in the dry sauna. Of course I said yes. The sauna was small, about 10 feet square. We were the only ones there and sat on opposite sides. I looked at her and watched the sweat roll down her neck and forehead. Some of her sandy blonde hair was messy down to her neck, and I thought it was the sexiest thing I had ever seen. I realized I was having sex with her and knew I was ruined when I met her gaze. She smiled, much to my relief. "Ken, you can look, just don't touch yet." I laughed nervously. Yes, I was arrested. Then I thought what the hell and moved on. Your husband is lucky. You know you're great, but you also have a good head on your shoulders. You are much better built than those others. Addressing the other ladies in our class. Her face darkened a little. Thank you, I needed to hear this. I'm not as well built as I may seem. I'm so busy and I don't have time or space to study. What about your house? I asked, trying my best not to get lost in her eyes. She explained that her husband was very controlling and did not like to see her study. She revealed that her marriage was in turmoil and that the reason she tried to become a nurse was to support herself and get away from him. You deserve better. I don't have all the answers, but you can learn from me. I never thought that she would support me. Your apartment complex has a swimming pool, doesn't it? My heart jumped when she asked this question. Yes. Very nice pool. I usually recover from training in the afternoon. Most of the people here are university students, so it's always empty during the week. Well, I wouldn't want to get in the way of you getting the attention of the female students, she said with a wink. None of them can hold a candle to you. I couldn't believe those words came out of my mouth. I wasn't a striker. Perhaps it was the heat in the sauna that made me feel dizzy and decided to move on. Besides, it looks like you could use an oil boy. She quickly stood up. I was sure I had pressed too hard. Agreed. See you there after yoga on Monday. I'll bring the oil. I watched her leave. I was in shock. That weekend at work was the slowest weekend of my life. Lynn was all I could think about. Was she serious? Will she come to my apartment? My pool? Did she think of me as a friend? How much more? What should I do? Monday finally arrived, and on the way to the gym, I convinced myself that we would pretend the conversation never happened and leave the gym as usual, going our separate ways. Monday has finally arrived. When class ended, I doubted even more that she would actually come to my house, so I packed my things and left. As I walked across the parking lot to my car, I felt a tap on my shoulder and turned around. Well, have you forgotten about our pool date? Instant butterflies. No, I've been thinking about it all weekend. I had no idea what else to say. The suave guy I was in my brain packed his bags and left me with this jerk who had trouble putting together a basic sentence. Follow me. That's all I could muster. I jumped into the car, made sure she was behind me, and drove her to my complex. I let her into the apartment and watched her walk around, exploring the place. I found myself hoping for her approval. Fine. Where can I change? I pointed to the bathroom. As soon as she walked in, I ran upstairs to my room, put on deodorant, brushed my teeth, put on my swimsuit, grabbed my pool bag, and ran back downstairs. I found her waiting for me. She was wearing a mesh jumpsuit. Beneath it, I saw the outline of a bikini. Fine, I said, trying my best to act cool. Right this way. I took her out of the apartment, and we talked a bit during the short walk to the pool. It was a hot September day in late summer in southeast Georgia. By the time we walked the 100 yards to the pool, I was sweating. I couldn't tell if it was the heat or my attraction to Lynn. Luck was with me. There was no one in the pool. Our city was a student city, and classes were just beginning. Most of the tenants in my complex were students, so we had the place to ourselves. We walked through the gate, and I started laying out towels on the two sun loungers. I tried to act nonchalant, but I was perfectly aware of her every move. She placed her bag on the table next to the chairs, took out some tanning oil, and took off her overalls. I watched. Even with sunglasses, it couldn't be hidden. To be honest, I didn't care. She was great. She was amazing. I would never have guessed that she was a mother of 3 children. There's just enough muscle to complement her long, athletic frame. I was stunned. I knew from our classes that she looked good. Yoga clothes hid a lot, but still showed off her physique. This bikini displayed a magnificent piece of human art. I was speechless. I took off my shirt, my chest puffed out, and my stomach retracted. I actually felt pretty good about my physique. Strengthening and yoga worked, not to mention I was eating healthy. I loved pizza and wings too much to have ripped abs, but my stomach was toned and lean, and my body looked better than it did in my 20s. Yoga really paid off. If she was looking at me, I didn't catch it. She connected the speakers to her cell phone and turned on the music. Katy Perry started singing something, but I couldn't hear the words because I was hypnotized by the angel standing in front of me in a bikini. Wow, you look amazing. I wasn't going to hold back. She smiled. Thank you. I'm trying. She grabbed the butter. Oh no, my pool, I'll be an oilman. I didn't think she would go for it, but after thinking for a while, she shrugged, gave me the oil, and lay down on her stomach. She surprised me again by reaching behind her and undoing the ties at the top. You're doing this on purpose. It's so unfair. What? She asked with a hint of false innocence in her voice. I sighed. Doesn't matter. I squeezed a large amount of oil onto her back and started massaging. Her skin was soft. It was a very beautiful brown color. I could tell she was lying down. It was clear that she did not worship the sun and did not live in a solarium. A nice soft brown shade suited her. As I rubbed the oil in, I felt her breathing quicken a little. Perhaps it was my imagination. How could this hot woman be here with me and let me do this? I rubbed her shoulders, arms, and back generously. Rubbing her sides, I slowed the movement of my hands as my fingertips moved closer to the sides of her breasts. She giggled. It tickles. Sorry. No problem, I don't mind. Well, I don't want you to giggle. I want you to be able to tune out everything and relax. Oh yeah, she said. It's a wonderful feeling. When I finished rubbing her, I managed to get to my chair without it being too obvious that I was aroused. Kasia sang something as I sat back and lubricated my legs and chest. Her head was turned to the side, facing me. I looked at her, enjoying the show. She smiled behind the sunglasses that hid her eyes. That smile told me I was in trouble. I could tell that I could never refuse anything she asked for. I may like what I see. I really liked how I felt. If you wear that kind of tanning oil all the time, you get hired. Just for you, and I'll take the job. She was laughing. You are silly. Try me. I may be stupid, but you are hot, hot, blazing hot. I'm waiting for my heart rate to slow down a little. She smiled again. Maybe I blushed a little. I was in over my head. She was becoming something more than just physical attraction. We talked for a while. She told me about her classes at the local college. She was studying to be a nurse. I was discussing my divorce. We talked about music and movies, children, studiously avoiding discussion of her marriage. I spoke briefly about my marriage and divorce. Help me, I'm going to roll over. I thought you'd never ask, I said, standing up and tying the strings of her top. I smelled her skin. All my feelings were focused on her. She reached for the bottle of oil. I didn't insist, thinking I was playing it cool. She looked at me, then handed me a bottle of oil. I need some on this side now. I think I heard myself swallow. My hand shook a little when I took the bottle from her. I tried to look calm and failed miserably. I poured oil on my hands and looked at her. She looked at me and started laughing. It's okay, I don't bite. I don't mind getting bitten. I'm just trying not to get slapped. She laughed again. I was in big trouble. I started rubbing oil on her legs. When I was done with her legs, I stood up, poured more oil on my hands, and stood behind her. Very gently, I began to massage the front of her shoulders and ran my hands down both her arms. I used my thumbs to massage her forearms. I had a lot of experience with this with my ex-wife, and I had a talent for massages. I massaged both hands, kneading each one with my finger and palms. I continued to look at her beautiful belly and noticed that her breathing had become rapid. I was leaning over her and saw how the pulse in her neck was jumping with every heartbeat. Her face turned slightly red. I returned to her shoulders and slowly and gently massaged the breast area, making sure to keep my fingers away from the edges of her bikini. I didn't stay there, feeling like I was on thin ice. I poured more oil on her navel. She inhaled sharply, and her breathing stopped for a moment. I reached out and rubbed the oil into her stomach and waist. As my hands moved lower, as I was bent over her head, I felt her breath on my face. Our lips were close, although my face was turned upside down towards hers. Slowly, regretfully, I finished applying the oil. I sat back down in my lounge chair. My heart was pounding. I saw that she was also trying to slow down her breathing, so I was glad that my massage had some effect on her. We lay there for some time. The music continued to play. We talked about small things, which is not my forte. I felt completely relaxed around her. The sun was taking its toll. We were both sweating in the heat. I couldn't take my eyes off her body. I tried to remember all its details. The second toe on her left foot had a silver ring. She had a cute little dimple under her belly button. She had 4 punctures in her right ear and 3 in her left. We kept talking about little things. The day was calm and time flew by. The heat continued to press on us. The weather was humid, hot, and we were both drawn to the water to cool off. I jumped into the water first, and she followed me. We just looked at each other. I walked up to her and hugged her. She laid her head on my chest and hugged me back. "It feels good," she said. "I can hear your heart beating." It's surprising you don't hear it explode. I didn't know if it was passion, crush, or love. I didn't care. I just knew I didn't want this day to end. I knew I didn't want to let her go, ever. I looked at her and leaned in to kiss her. She turned her head and swam away. I swam after her. "Sorry. I didn't mean to push, but then again, I'm not sorry. You're gorgeous." "Thank you," she said. "I just want to enjoy the day with you. Nothing serious, okay?" "No problem." My heart sank a little. "I'm hungry," she said as she stepped out of the pool. I watched the water dripping from her oiled body. Her figure was simply perfect. Feminine and soft, yet strong and fit. My greatest attraction was to her intelligent eyes. Smart and alert. "I would like to eat," I said, leaving the pool. "Let's go back to the apartment. You can shower and study while I cook something." We got dressed and walked back to my apartment. It was cool and dark inside. I took her upstairs and showed her the shower. When she entered the bathroom, I hoped that she would turn around and beckon me with her finger, inviting me to take a shower together, but this did not happen. I went downstairs and began to prepare dinner. I sliced up pimento cheese and summer sausage. I sliced a banana and a few oranges. I quickly sliced the avocado and made a fresh salsa. Finally, I made a jug of margarita and poured a large glass of salt around the edge. When I finished, she came into the kitchen wearing shorts and a t-shirt, smelling fresh and clean. I looked at myself, still sweating from being outside, then looked at her. "Bon appetit, I'll be back soon." She picked up her glass and took a long sip. Delicious. Just the way I like it, with a lot of salt around the edges." I took my glass and left the kitchen. "Help yourself." I ran upstairs, undressed, and jumped into the shower. The water was hot, and there was still steam in the bathroom. A few minutes later, I was clean and dry and headed back downstairs. Again, there was a fleeting fantasy of her joining me in the shower, but when I came down, she was curled up on my couch with a plate of food next to her and a medical book on her lap, which she was reading intently. I turned on the music and started washing the dishes while she studied. I kept looking at her. She was beautiful. While part of me craved her, another part was content with just her company. There was something satisfying about feeding her and knowing that she felt safe and cozy with me. From time to time, she would look at me and smile, then go back to her studies, and each time my heart would flutter. An hour later, she looked at her watch, closed the book, and began to pack her things. "It's time to pick up the kids," she said, looking at me with some concern. "Well, of course, if given the choice, honestly, I'd rather make love to you, but I enjoyed our day, and if that's all I can get from you, I'll take it." I was a little weak to be so vulnerable in front of her, but at the same time, she was so much more to me than I thought, and I wanted to be honest with her. She looked at me for a while. She came up and hugged me. I hugged her tightly, burying my nose in her hair. Her body pressed against mine, and my arousal immediately made itself felt. Then I walked her to the door and watched her get into the car and drive away. She glanced back in my direction before driving away. So for the next few months, this became our routine. 2 or 3 times a week, we met at my place, went to the pool, and studied. I fed her, played her music, and let her sleep with her head in my lap while I stroked her hair. Every day I fell more and more in love with her. I shared my personal life, or rather lack thereof, with her. I went on dates with a yoga instructor a few times, and Lynn got a little jealous about it. Every time I had a date, she would eagerly await the details. When winter came, the pool closed. We still made time for each other every week. She was very careful about our physical interactions. No kissing. Very rarely did she touch me. However, she allowed me more and more freedom to touch her. We always hugged before she left. She let me massage her shoulders and neck. I was still her butter boy. The few times I tried to move on, she gently but firmly made it clear that she was not interested. As winter gave way to spring, she began to talk more about her past and marriage. Her husband was fat and out of shape. He was overly controlling. verbally and almost physically abusive. She made it clear that I was everything that he was not. She wasn't a victim. She didn't complain or cry, she just stated the facts. As I listened, it was obvious that she hadn't discussed this with many people. During this time, we continued to train. The date with the yoga instructor didn't work out, but it showed a jealous side of Lynn that I liked. There wasn't much to do in winter, so I spent more and more time in the gym. As I continued to improve my fitness, two things happened. My testosterone levels continued to rise and Lynn became more and more open about her attraction to me. When spring arrived, the pool at my apartment complex opened again, and Lynn began coming back to wear a bikini and sunbathe. On our first trip to the pool, as I undressed, I noticed she gave me a double glance. In winter, I wore sweaters and long sleeves, so the changes in my figure were not obvious. When I took off my shirt and revealed the body I'd been working on for the last 6 months, she saw broader shoulders, a toned chest, the first signs of six-pack abs and strong, muscular legs. She was sitting in her bikini, and as I put on her sunglasses, I noticed her licking her lips as I took out the oil. "You do not mind?" I asked, handing her the oil. Apparently, I interrupted her thoughts, and she took the oil from me. "Wow, you look great, honey. I mean, you always looked good, but now wow." My ego went up 10 points. "I worked hard. For you. And I love it when you call me honey." She hesitated and blushed slightly. "You'll never stop." She poured the oil on my back and slowly began to rub it in. "Only unless you tell me to stop. You know what you're doing to me. I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm in love with you. I'm glad you like the way I look. I wish you knew my heart. That's it. What I know is that I'm at peace when I'm with you." I really didn't care anymore at this point. She became my confidant and friend. Was all she said. I couldn't figure out if this was good or bad. I heard her close the cap on the oil bottle. She stood up and jumped into the pool. She was wearing a bright yellow bikini. Her time in the gym paid off, too. When her head emerged from the water, she looked at me and beckoned with her finger in a "come here" gesture. I got up and went down into the water. As soon as I approached her, she hugged me. She wrapped her arms around my shoulders and, to my surprise, wrapped her legs around my waist. Her fingers slid up the back of my head, and she looked into my eyes. The next moment, we started kissing. I was sure it was a dream. We've never kissed before. After the first time I tried, I didn't try again. We kissed on the cheek, but our lips together were taboo. We looked at each other. Crap. I didn't know what else to say. Yes, it was something. My arms were still wrapped around her. I felt the moment was over. I let her go and swam to the edge of the pool. I got out and dried myself off, opened the drink, and sat down. I watched her come out of the pool. Her body was amazing. "You're a sexy, damn sexy woman." I rarely cursed in front of her. She came up to me and hit me on the leg. Then she leaned over and kissed me again. A quick kiss. I thought for a moment, then said what was on my mind. "Best kiss of my life." She blushed. "Okay, I'm glad. And now I'm ready for a margarita. I have a pitcher in the refrigerator. Just say the word," I replied, leaving the pool and starting to dry myself. "Word," she said, looking into my eyes. I was delighted by the way she relaxed next to me. She was still wary. I could still see the pain and disappointment when she mentioned her marriage. But she could share it when she was with me. She could switch off and enjoy time with me. I realized that we had developed a real friendship. We returned to the apartment together. As we entered the cool, air-conditioned room, the contrast between the bright day outside and the dark apartment was momentarily disorienting. I tripped and fell on her. We both sort of caught each other and ended up face to face, very close, looking into each other's eyes. This was the moment for me. Months of communication, glances, jokes, hugs, teasing, months of falling in love with each other culminated in this moment for me. Before I knew it, my lips were on hers, and she was pressed against the wall in the living room. Passion soared as we kissed passionately. I pressed my body against hers. We stared at each other. You better leave now. If you don't do this, something will happen from which there will be no return. I tried to behave nobly. At least part of me tried to give her that opportunity, desperately hoping she wouldn't support me. Without taking her eyes off me, she reached behind her back and undid the string of her bikini. Then she raised her hands behind her neck and untied the ropes. Her eyes met mine and her bikini top fell to the floor. Then we had sex. We got out of the shower and dried off. I toweled off her body, starting at her feet and working my way up her body. We walked into the bedroom and my eyes were drawn to her gorgeous naked body, devouring it. She was heading towards the door. "You're not going anywhere." We had sex again. Damn, baby, yoga really paid off. Soon spring came and the pool opened again. We returned to our routine, spending our days by the water and enjoying each other's company. Our relationship became even stronger, and I felt that we were getting closer every day. One day, after another yoga class, we went to the sauna again. This time I was confident in my feelings and knew that I would not miss the moment. We were sitting in the steam room, talking and laughing, when I suddenly realized how dear she was to me. "Lynn," I began, looking into her eyes. "I love you. I can't imagine my life without you, and I want to spend every day with you." Her eyes filled with tears, and she smiled. "I love you too, Ken. You made me happy, and I can't imagine my life without you." I hugged her, and we sat there, feeling each other's warmth and knowing that a bright future awaited us. We were ready to start a new chapter in our lives together. Several months passed, and we decided to move to another city to start over with a clean slate. Lynn found a job as a nurse at a large hospital, and I took a job that allowed me to spend more time with her. We rented a cozy apartment and began to arrange our new home. Every day was filled with joy and happiness. We spent time together, doing yoga, cooking dinners, and just enjoying each other's company. Our relationship became even stronger, and I knew that I had found my other half. One evening, as we were sitting on the balcony watching the sunset, Lynn suddenly said, "Ken, I'm pregnant." My heart sank with joy. I hugged her and felt tears of joy rolling down my cheeks. "This is wonderful. We will become parents." We began to prepare for the birth of our child, arranging the children's room and buying everything we needed. Lynn was beaming with happiness, and I couldn't get enough of her. Our lives had changed forever, and we were ready to face new challenges together. When our baby was born, I felt my heart fill with love and gratitude. Lynn was a wonderful mother, and I was proud that we had such a wonderful family. Several years have passed, and our life has become even better. We raised our child together, spent time with friends, and enjoyed every moment. Lynn became not only the love of my life, but also my best friend, partner, and colleague. Every day I thanked fate for bringing us to each other. We overcame all difficulties together, and our love only grew stronger over the years. Now I knew that I had found my happiness, and I was ready to spend my whole life with Lynn, loving her and supporting her in everything. We were happy and knew that a bright and joyful future awaited us, full of love, laughter, and happiness. We found each other, and now we were together forever. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one. Click to the next one.